Howard hummed as he stirred some seasoning in meat into a mixing bowl, preparing lunch for his family in Lincoln. Once you get a taste of the man's crab cake sandwiches, you were hooked on forever. However, that sole loud boy was still absent. Glancing at the clock, Howard looked and raised a brow. Huh? Thought they'd be back by now. It didn't take that long to figure out when Clyde would need braces. All the McBrides were aware that Lincoln went to the dentist, as it seemed to take longer than usual just to check the damage done to the boy's mouth. Left with his mother close to 11, and it was just after 2 p.m. As if to answer in case of the missing loud, a knock at the front door got everyone's attention. Harold walked up and opened the door, seeing Rita carrying Lincoln in her arms. The 11-year-old had his arms wrapped around his mother's neck and shoulder, as if he was still a toddler. A faint snores could be heard from him every few seconds. "Hello, Rita," he smiled. "You guys seem to took longer than usual." "Yeah, sorry about that." Rita walked inside, being careful not to let the sides of the door brush against Lincoln. "We had our appointment, but then it was discovered that something else needed to be done about his teeth." The monitor shifted as Lincoln got a better grip on her son. "Sorry, but there is just some place can I put him down at? I can't carry Lincoln like I used to." She chuckled a little. Sure. Harold guided to the couch, arranged with the pillows a bit. Once he was done, Rita laid Lincoln down on the couch and removed the boy's shoes. Lincoln must have felt himself lying on something soft, seeing that he immediately adjusted his position a bit before lying still. Rita's heart fluttered a bit, giving a warm smile before kissing her son on his forehead. As a mother, it was still painful to not have her little boy back at home with the family, but at least he appeared to be getting better. The mother's smile dropped when she stared at the sleeping child. "I just hope he doesn't have another nightmare again," Rita stated solemnly. "If it helps, he hasn't screamed himself awake in almost a week. He hasn't said much anything about having nightmares either," Harold replied. "I guess that helps," Rita answered back, gently brushing a hand through Lincoln's hair. "So he fell asleep in the car again?" Howard called from the kitchen. Rita shook her head. "No, he was asleep before that." The blonde glanced over at the clock, making a mental note that her family should be home any time now. While we were in David's office, he found out that 2 of Lincoln's molars had been shifted when he was hit in the face a few times, Rita hesitantly answered, saying that her daughters flat out assaulted Lincoln wasn't an easy thing to do, even if it was a truth. When they came to be misaligned, so we had to remove them. The martyr reached into her purse, took out a small plastic bag that contained a bottle of pills, as well as some gauze and sponges. She then handed it to Harold. "These are his painkillers. Make sure he takes them every 6 hours, and make sure he replaces the gauze in his mouth every 3 hours." "That can do," Harold nodded, placing a bag back on the table next to the couch. "Excuse me for asking this, Miss Lau, but if Lincoln was asleep while getting his teeth removed, didn't he have any fits or sudden movements while he was on the table, did he?" Clyde pointed out, wincing just a bit of imagining his friend being tossing and turning on the operating chair and one of the doctors accidentally pulling something that didn't need to come out. "Thankfully, no. In fact, he's been out since we left the office. I did wake him for a minute so he knows we're done, but even then Lincoln was barely awake." "Phew," Clyde wiped some sweat off his forehead. "Thank goodness for that." The boy paused and glanced at Lincoln. "He's definitely getting braces, right?" "Literally," Rita replied, honking the horn that was heard outside, making the woman get up. "That must be Lynn. Sorry to keep my visit short, but we'll have to go grocery shopping." "No worries. We'll make sure Lincoln takes his medicine once he's up and about." Harold opened the door for her. "Take care, Rita." The loud monitor waved goodbye before Harold shut the door. "Do you think Lincoln will be up in time for lunch?" Howard asked, still mixing the ingredients. "I'm afraid not, Howie. Remember when we took Clyde to get his teeth looked at, and he needed to be put under to let the doctor work?" "Oh, I remember. That poor thing was so afraid of sharp tools." "It's okay, Dad. I'm mostly over that now," Clyde stated, walking back towards the hall. "I'll make sure Lincoln gets a sandwich when he wakes up." The two fathers nodded, getting back into their own doings. As the McBrides were getting back into their Saturday routine, Lincoln's mind began to wander as he continued with his anesthesia-induced nap. His brain had been drawing blanks for the last hour or so. The only feeling his body was being moved was his tired state, only that he was placed on something soft. Did Lincoln's brain begin to build up another dream for him to play in, or die? The loud boy's eyes were moved behind their lids before they slowly began to open them. Lincoln's vision was blurred upon fully opening his pupils, only not seeing a yellowish light shining down upon him. He raised his hand to shield his eyes from the sunlight, piercing through the leaves on the tree branch as the boy sat under. Wiping the sleep from his eyes, Lincoln had sat up from the spot, particularly since he had a good view of the sunset during the later half of the day. Lincoln scratched his head, wondering if he was doing something out there. The last thing he remembered was his mouth feeling numb from the tooth removal. To make things even confusing, Lincoln was also using his left arm, the broken one, to scratch his head. Glancing down, he saw that he was still dressed in his usual attire. Upon looking at his arm, Lincoln saw some notable scarring. The boy's eyes went wide as the past few days finally returned to the forefront of his brain. He told Lady Ace to come and meet him at the spot he arranged for the rendezvous hours ago. He also went alone, meeting that was a tad less awkward for his other two allies, given that he revealed that he himself had a girlfriend. Lincoln arrived at the location just before dawn, but she had not. "I guess I must have fell asleep," Lincoln yawned, standing up to stretch his legs. "I thought Ronnie Ann would have been here by now." The 11-year-old gave a small frown. "Hope she didn't get into trouble." Lincoln's blood ran cold the moment he heard the sound of the pistol's hammers being pulled back, and judging from how loud it was, the gun was just inches from the back of his head. "I'm not the only one who's in trouble right now," a tomboyish feminine voice answered him. Without a sparing second, Lincoln grabbed the wrist of the assailant before flinging her over his shoulder. He didn't have the time to identify his attacker, as the foot of the swinging was towards his face. The boy crossed his arms to block the attack. His body was shuddering from the bit of the impact. He then grabbed the foot of his opponent and reeled her in, having at first to already connect with her face. Unfortunately, Lincoln's opponent saw it coming and pushed his arm back to the side just enough as it grazed her hair. When it closed, she reached out and pressed her hand on his windpipe. Lincoln gagged from the all-of-a-sudden interruption of his airway, forcing him to release the grip he had had. He binded when he was given a small poke to the eyes, followed by a few hits of the noggin as Lincoln was trying to ease the pain on his sight. Stuck in a daze, the boy was literally pulled out, and his opponent was grabbed by the collar of his shirt and reeled him close. Lincoln shut his eyes as he anticipated being soaked and socked it in his nose. Instead, the loud boy was caught off guard once again when he felt something soft being pressed onto his lips. The boy opened his eyes to find himself staring into a pair of calm, hazel-colored eyes. The girl then shook and took her lips off as a small pop emitting from their separation. Ronnie Ann gave a wide grin. "Gotcha, lame-o." The tomboy was dressed in her purple hoodie, opposed to her crime-fighting outfit. The hoodie was unzipped, revealing her gun was in her holster, strapped onto her abdomen. Lincoln's face became red as a Christmas ornament. "I really am glad Clyde and Lily aren't here right now," he stammered mentally. He took a look at his face that made Ronalda chuckle a bit. She then had released his shirt and put a hand on her hip. "For someone who claimed to have been nearly beaten to death, you don't look half as bad as I imagined." Lincoln shook his head, his blush dying a little by little. "If it weren't for Clyde sneaking me back to our old base, I'd still be confined to a bed right now." He still folded his arms, gaining a stern tone. "I didn't exactly like being snuck up on like that, you know." "Aw, come on, Lincoln," the Latina fringed innocent voice. "You usually like it when I surprise you." "Ronalda, I had been attacked by 9 girls just 2 days ago and nearly died." The loud raised his voice a bit, just to make his irritation clearer. The Hispanic smile flattered into a frown, to which Lincoln immediately dropped his glare. He gave a little sigh. I'm sorry. He stared at the ground. I just don't feel like getting attacked by another girl right now. It's fine. I should have known better than to try and doing that on ya, considering what you told me earlier. Ronnie Ann put her hands on her pockets. I was just hoping it might cheer you up some. You know, that I care about you, right? Lincoln managed to smile a little of his own, then looked up at her. If you hadn't, you wouldn't have kissed me just now. Ronaldo's cheeks became a little bit more heated. Your idea of Rendezvous Point was the very spot when we had our first, well, you know. She rolled her shoulders, casting a warm smile back at him. Knowing my sisters, they would have meddled, and I didn't want them to ruin anything. Lincoln gently grasped her wrist, which Ronnie Ann slid back a little until her hand was in his. The two kids stared at each other and then locked in bliss, their heads slowly moving towards each other, as if they were going to share another kiss. The moment was interrupted when a younger presence made herself known. Lily cleared her throat, making the older kids glance at her in surprise. Like them, she was dressed in her regular attire, that consists of the purple button shirt and skirt, along with her hair coming to a stop just above her shoulders. Like Lincoln and Lola, she had visible cowlick at the back of her head. The 7-year-old was casually leaning against a tree and had to keep herself from outright laughing because of the shocked faces her brother and his girlfriend were having. Did I interrupt anything? She said with a smug smile. When did you get here? Lincoln asked nervously. 7 minutes ago. It wasn't like I'd let you go alone after last time. Plus, Lily's smile became brighter. I wanted to see who my future sister-in-law would be. The little blonde gave a hard glare at Ronnie Ann. When I saw she pointed a gun at you, I was about to jump in because I thought they sent her. Her gaze then softened into a loving smile. But when I saw you guys kissed, it was super cute. Lily had her hands on her cheeks as she squealed in delight. The older kids gave awkward glances at everywhere, but Lily had their cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Lily put her hands up as if she was looking away through the camera. It's not hard to tell that Ronnie Ann is a lady ace assassin. I mean, you keep your hair the same. Ronaldo's eyes twitched a little before she let out a growl. It wasn't out of anger, but more of a front to hide her ever-growing embarrassment, as if being red in the face was any indication. Wanting to change the subject in spite of anything at the moment that ruined, Lincoln turned back to a flustered tomboy. Anyway, what were you doing that took you hours to get here? He gave a gun hoister a wary look. You weren't trying to hunt down the rest of the full house, were you? Ronnie Ann then looked back at Lincoln with a nervous smile creeping up on her face. Maybe. The boy gave a small frown. Ronalda! The sharpshooter then raised her hands in defense. It was only for 30 minutes, and I didn't find them anyways, so calm down. She folded her arms. I stopped at home to get a few things that would be useful, checked on my mom while she was asleep, visited my brother. Ronnie Ann's voice grew quiet. And I visited Papi at the cemetery. Lincoln and Lily knew what that meant. While the Louds lost their parents during an outing, Ronnie Ann lost her father while she was out of line on duty. It was the main reason the Hispanic girl took up fighting crime in the first place, along with her older brother being in the hospital due to a robbery attempt at the store that he worked at. The Louds might have it rough with the family ties right now, but Ronalda just had her mother to come to. And when they weren't busy fighting crime, Lincoln could tell Ronnie Ann was still pretty about from her family being cut in two, despite her attempts to hide it. Heck, the Louds themselves barely dodged a bullet of being put into foster care, with Lori and Lenny and Luna constantly working to keep the bills in check. Lisa also landed a job at the university to help things out, but it was never the same without Rita or Lynn Sr. Lincoln can only imagine his parents must feel right now, with the turmoil their children dealing with this currently. Aside from that, if you were planning to confront your sisters at some point, I'd figured I'd bring the big guns. Ronnie Ann walked past him, grabbed a backpack left hanging by the tree. Lincoln was sitting against it, unzipping the biggest pockets that she reached in, produced in two particular handguns. One was a desert eagle with the Hispanic markings engraved on the side, while the other was a large revolver. More suspiciously, it was an S&W model 500. Lincoln recognized that gun. It belonged to Ronnie Ann's father, apparently. Mr. Santiago liked to collect vintage revolvers while he was in the RWPD. Unlike most revolvers, which typically shoot 44 ammunition, this gun made it to handle the .50 cal Magnum rounds. They were very much like ammunition that you would typically see in machine guns. Small beads of sweat formed at the back of Lincoln and Lily's heads. "Don't you think that's a little, overkill?" the loud boy asked. "I don't think you have a room to talk about overkill when you were literally beaten to the floor of vastly outnumbered fight, Lincoln," the Latina retorted, stowing the guns. "Plus, I know one or two of your sisters are very resistant to small arms. Those two guns wouldn't help stop them in their tracks." Ronnie Ann gave a short pause, looking back at the city. "I know I said I killed them." She then turned back to the pair. "But I won't unless you say otherwise. I know what it's like losing a family, and I don't want to make you lose any smaller." "Thanks, Ronnie Ann. I still don't know how exactly we can even take them on." Lincoln began to pace around. "They are still outnumber us by 3 to 1. We have to be well oriented because of how they took me down." The boy furrowed his brows. "I know Lisa was the one who organized them because she was the only person who didn't fight me directly. Otherwise, I was able to handle myself. So we can keep her occupied, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem." "Sounds nice, but we're still outnumbered if you think that's still a problem," Ronnie Ann pointed out. Lincoln stopped pacing, his frown growing slightly. "Right." Lily pierced her lips, tapping her foot onto the ground. Her eyes shifted about her as her mind snorted through a list of people that they could call up to fight them with the other members of their family. In a few seconds, her eyes widened a bit when a smile formed. "I think I know of a few people who can help." Both the 11-year-olds glanced at her. "You do?" Lincoln asked. "We do," Lily replied, making Lincoln even more confused. In real time, things at the Loud House has not changed within much of the hour. Ronnie Ann and Lynn kept practicing punches, with Lynn continuing to give pointers to the younger girl. Currently, both tomboys were sitting on the couch. Ronalda greedily chugged down her water bottle as sweat dripped down the sides of her face. Her arms felt like that they were going to fall off at any second, to which Lynn stated that it was a good thing. They moved inside to take a break, largely because Lynn didn't want Ronalda to fall out of exhaustion. The two girls met with Lenny in the kitchen, who offered to make a smoothie for them, since the fashionist happened to be drinking one herself. Upstairs, Luna was hazily strumming her guitar. She didn't have any songs in mind, it just helped ease her boredom that she felt. Luann was busy having a conversation with Mr. Coconuts about what happened, with the dummy even slapping her a few times for being a dunce and berating her. This led to somewhat of a comedical, from Luna's perspective, an argument between the two, but for the comedian ultimately put the dummy in a box. Mr. Coconuts begged to be let out and that he was sorry, saying that he developed some claustrophobia while in storage. Lucy was in her and Lynn's room, still putting together the arrangements for El Diablo's funeral. She had done pet funerals before, but she wanted this one to be special for Lana's sake. Since the body had already been disposed of, she sorted through the family photo album in hopes of finding a lone picture of the snake. After all, if Lana loved him so much, surely she would have taken pictures with him at some point. Sadly, she didn't find any in the family photo album, but she did find quite a few pictures in separate scrapbooks that Lana put together. The Gothic child also made note to ask if anyone could get some of Lana's former pets to attend. Tracking down their owners could still be a hassle itself, though, since the mudlover had over 20 pets alone. As for the twins, it was easily the most deary place in the house right now. Lana was lying in her bed, giving Lucy a challenge that, being the mopliest girl in the house, she gave her a lifeless stare at the ceiling. Her cap was on the floor, overalls had only been one strap hooked up, and her hair wasn't as usual pigtail fashion. leaving it to hang right down to her shoulders. Pink eyes then dried up, and snot was clear indication that she had been having another crying fit. Lana had been in the state ever since the family returned home, and Lola did the best that she could to help her twin. The former pageant queen even took the risk of bringing mud into the house, hoping that it would spark something up within her. Lana didn't even spare a glance, unable to figure out what else that she could do. The younger twin left the room, hoping that some alone time might help Lana. During that time, the mud lover let Hops and Izzy out of their cages prior so they could roam free, something Diablo would never be able to do again. Hops jumped onto the bed and nuzzled her cheek, and Lana turned her head towards him and brought the frog close as if he'd disappear within seconds. Izzy was nosed at where, probably crawling around in the vents again, short out of small insects. The little amphibian could feel her pain. After all, over half of the other animals under Lana's care had been like brothers and sisters to him. It was already bad enough that Lana's tearful face was the last thing Hops saw before being sent to the animal shelter. And after seeing each of his friends being given away, made Hops wondered if he would be next. In a way, he was thankful that Lana came back for him. But now he was effectively the last friend Lana truly had. Not to discredit Izzy, but she intended to keep herself most of the time. A knock at the door grabbed their attention. Lisa poked her head in, glancing around before spotting her depressed sibling. Lana raised her head, giving the young prodigy her attention in 2 seconds before lying straight again, taking the sign as to come in. Lisa pushed open the door. "Excuse my sudden entrance, Lana, but I require your assistance with a curious innovator." "Like what?" Lana managed to squeak out. "I recalled that our revelation meeting about our therapeutic sessions, Lola was quite concerned about your gross habits and how they may affect your overall health. Normally, most of us ignore this and pass it on to you as being somewhat weird phrase or whatnot, but however, my curiosity has perplexed when this is taken into the account and the number of hostile germs in common human dumpster and the disease-carrying animals you've been around." Now Lana furrowed her brows and propped up with her shoulders. "What do you want? I'm not in the mood for another stupid lecture from you." Lisa flinched a little from Lana's outburst, but quickly regained her stoic stature. "I require a blood sample from you to find out if you earned something from potentially dangerous diseases." Lana held her irritated glare and lied back down on the bed. "Nah." Lisa, with a quick glance, looked around the room. Spawning a few new cages, Lana quickly stepped on her outside that were devoid of occupancy, and the tomboy had preferred to let the animals roam free. She did practically the dangerous ones leave them locked up. She didn't have many, but there were quite impressive imitating ones that the girl had something like a pit viper. A tad depressing, knowing that this room is filled with reptilians of various species that would normally be hostile towards each other, for now lay bare. Still, astonishing that Lana somehow managed to keep them in line, as well as avoid being poisoned. The 4-year-old monologued to herself. Lisa walked over to the 6-year-old's bed and climbed up and sitting at her feet. "Lana, I may not fully understand the partnership you had with Diablo, but I am terribly sorry about this passing." Lana's lips curled down, small tears forming at the corner of her eyes again. "But I do know that one of us wished to see you entangled with your depressed state, so that is why I want to come with me to this procedure. At least you won't spend the next 4 hours locked in your room until one of our parents summon us for dinner." "Lisa, I get what you're trying to do, but I told Lola, I just want to be alone right now." "I am certain that we both know that it's not going to do you any good." Lana looked down, although enough to spot her sister in a peripheral vision. "Who are you supposed to be, Ms. Lopez?" Lisa rolled her eyes. "No, but I'm hoping you'll at least be distracted from your depression." Lana folded her arms. "I'm not getting out of this bed." Lisa pierced her lips. Normally she would give up and let this go, but it wasn't like she could have just sit there and grab a sample from Lana while she slept. Not that she has done it before, mind you, although Lisa would be hesitant to admit it. She did have some sort of attachment towards the animals she used as test subjects, when she didn't need her siblings' help. It broke the little genius' heart each time her experience were either mutated or killed her lab rats, but it was not to the extent of how she might have felt if one of the family pets were lost. Lisa may have killed her lab mice, but she learned not to grow too attached. It made the pain easier to bear. It would be easy for Lisa just to take Lana's sample through uterine means, but she made a pact to herself never to only ask her siblings for permission first, even if it meant bugging them to no end. Lisa gave a small smile before putting up with the neutral face again. The brunette propped herself onto Lana's feet, her hands resting on the older girl's socks. "Can you please help me with my study?" the little genius asked in a cute voice that matched her age. Lana looked at Lisa again, getting the puppy-eyed stare from her. The mud lover gave a disoriented stare right back down before lying down. "No, please, no, please, no." Seeing where this might be heading, Hobbs jumped off the bed and onto the nightstand. "Please, no, please." Lana squinted her eyes, giving a low growl. "No!" Lisa paused for a moment, resist the urge to giggle. "Please. No, Lisa. Please. No. Please." Lana's hands gripped the bed sheets. "Can't you say anything but please?" The 4-year-old gave an innocent look. "Please, with ice cream and chocolate on top." Lana's lips curled until they got under her teeth revealed. Her eyes widened a bit as her pupils shrank. Within a second, the 6-year-old grabbed her pillow, pressing it over her face before giving what Lisa could describe as the girliest scream she's ever heard from the tomboy. Lisa blinked in surprise with caution, relinquishing her hold on Lana's feet. On the plus side, it was quite a rare occurrence to hear Lana's raspy voice in a high-pitched voice, given how much she nearly sounded like a guy. Lisa thought her vocal cords weren't capable of producing such a sound. On the negative, the tomboy could easily kick her in the chest, given close to proximity to her feet. Lana gave a muffled sigh before removing the pillow from her face. "All right, fine," she sat up fully. "Only if it will get you to stop bugging me." Lisa gave a small grin. Lisa 1, sibling 0. She chortled a little to herself before hopping off the bed, her handy woman of a sister begrudgingly following. Upon reaching the scientist's room, Lana saw that Lisa had a few feints set up on her desk. 2 petri dishes set on each side, one of which to be having something in it already. Next to them was a microscope on one side, along with a small syringe and a notebook, with some textbooks on the other. The container of cotton swabs and the bottle of alcohol sat near the edge of the table. Lily was absent as she was downstairs in the living room. Lisa raised a brow. "I thought you didn't bring anything back with us." "I didn't. I had a colleague drop off a few things for me while we were out." Lisa grabbed the needle. "Correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have Syngenesophobia." The 4-year-old then wheeled her chair around to her sister. "Right?" Lana gave a dull scare. "What the heck is that?" "Fear of needles?" "No, that's Lola's deal." "Okay, so I won't have to inject you with ancient to calm you. Please hold out your arm." Lana did as she was instructed, before Lisa took a cotton ball out and dabbed it with alcohol. She felt around for Lana's artery before swiping the area, pushing a knee into the handy woman's arm. Seconds later, Lana winced slightly as she felt the needle pushed into her artery, watching her blood left her arm and go into a vial connected to the syringe. Once it was full, Lisa removed the needle and taped it to a small strip of medical tape to the injection area. Stepping onto the chair, Lisa took out the vial, pouring half of it into a clear dish, before grabbing her microscope. Lana tapped her foot impatiently as the 4-year-old jotted down notes whatever it was, seeing before moving into the second dish. Lisa poured Lana's blood into it and watched for a reaction from the microscope. The brunette widened her eyes a bit as what she was seeing. Very interesting," Lisa muttered before writing something down. "Well," Lana huffed. "Come here for a second, dear sibling." Lisa motioned her over. Lana dragged her feet along the carpet before Lisa let her peered into a microscope. Tell me, what do you see? Lana closed her eye to focus better through the lens. She could see some red and white blood cells, as if they were some pellets of virus-fighting cells that looked to be a little restless, constantly moving in random directions. The tomboy didn't pay much attention to this, though. Is this in my blood? Yes. Now notice the white blood cells that dish appear to be quite active when they shouldn't be. Now look at the second dish, Lisa instructed. Lana turned the scope to look at the second dish. She saw the same cells, along with some that looked like a foreign object viciously attacked by the white blood cells. What is that? That's the bacteria it's gathered from a dumpster at the college. I noticed how quickly your white blood cell responded to the virus and immediately sought to eradicate it. Now with hyperactivity, while your white blood cells normally indicates that one may have the autoimmune to deficiency, which I believe you possessed. Lana watched her white blood cells efferscated the bacteria within seconds before directing her attention to Lisa. What? Autoimmune deficiency. It means your white blood cells would actively attack your body, making you more susceptible to disease. However, it appears that you have opposed to this disability. Lisa then took a microscope from Lana to confirm that the bacteria ceased to exist. Your immune system's overclocked to the point where your body is always active and ready to kill off any typical viruses that comes into the body. I'm not sure how this has happened, but it does explain why you haven't gotten sick from your constant dumpster diving escapades. Wait, what about the time everyone got sick with the flu? Lana asked, scratching her hair. Yes, that's a bit of a head scratcher. Lisa moved the microscope to the side of the bed, scribbled down with some more notes. Prior to that, you haven't gotten sick from being in the trash or anything unsanitary place, correct? Lana shrugged. Not that I know of. Perhaps your body has long since adjusted to being able to fend off some bacteria inside of dumpsters and other potentially dangerous illnesses that might be transmitted from animals or even bad food, given how you can stand Aunt Ruth's expired pudding. Lisa scratched her head with the butt of her pen. But if you're still susceptible to typical illnesses like pneumonia, for example, and food poisoning, it also appears that you don't have any abnormally high amount of blood cells in your system. Hence the reason why you get sick like the rest of us, but I may need more samples from you for further investigation, Lisa stated as she wrote down a few more things. With Lisa temporarily busy, Lana happened to glance back at her desk. Her eyes scanning over the books light on it. The handy woman's interest grew more when she spotted a thick physiology textbook that laid on top of the others. Lana picked up the book, seeing a bookmark was sticking out at the top. She opened it to where it was inserted and came across a couple of pages that looked centered around the concept of fear itself. At least that's where she got the titles from. Below the bolded letters, the rest of the pages were literally walls of words. Lana could already feel the boredom creeping up with her a little longer. She stared at it. She closed the book before her curiosity waned internally. Hey, Lise, what's up with this book? Lana waved the item in her hand. Lisa glanced up at her sister. Oh, that? Lisa sat the notebook down. I have purchased it from the campus library to get a better understanding of why Lincoln fears us. Lana gave an unimpressed look. She snorted a little, stuffing a finger in her nose to dig something out. It's because we beat him up pretty bad, remember? The 6-year-old squinted as she pulled out a booger. The tomboy then looked at it for a few seconds before flicking it into the trash. For a stupid reason, no less. Obviously, Lisa grabbed the book from Lana, opening it to where she let off. But after having my own session with Miss Lopez, it got me thinking of what exactly causes fear. It has been in mind for the past week or two, and only recently I acquired that from that book. After delving into the text to satisfy my curiosity, I came up with 2 questions. What does Lincoln fear about us and why? The 4-year-old explained as she read through a few paragraphs. And then again, it's because he thinks we're going to total him worse than Vanzilla. Lana folded her arms. You heard what he said when we visited him at the hospital. That is correct, but why? Lisa stammered, the book closed. That question was never answered. Lana wrapped her fingers around her forearm. She then glanced out of the window. Given on how all of us act, it's probably why we're too hot-headed for our own good. Likely, but I believe it's something else, Lisa stated, making Lana raise a brow in confusion. After reading this book, I've come to the conclusion that the fear is only a thought process that only exists purely in our minds. It is born simply by perceiving something is a threat to overall health, and therefore cannot exist unless we make it so. And often fear is closely associated to something that is dangerous. Lana pierced her lips, trying to deduce what Lisa was saying. Huh? Lisa closed her eyes as she fought with a groan. What I'm saying is the reason Lincoln is afraid of us is due to him thinking we're a major threat to his life. Just like it's Lenny with her spiders, but not all spiders are dangerous to humans. Some are, but the common house spiders are not. It's just a known fact that all spiders carry venom, and that makes some people afraid when one is around. Especially the larger ones like a tarantula. And from a former fact, fear takes form and guides through certain people to avoid spiders. The 4-year-old then placed the book on the table. Make no mistake, Lana. Danger is always ever present, but fear is just a notion that it purely exists in our thoughts and drives us to avoid certain objects or people. Lana started to nod as she a bit of understood of knowledge. Oh, I get it. It's the same thing with snakes. They carry venom too. Well, not all of them, but those guys literally kill a person if they wanted to. But snakes prefer to be left alone pretty much. Most of them. Their constrictors don't carry venom. They'll just squeeze you until you're ready to eat. The blonde's lips then curled down as they thought of her beloved pet. She then gave a downcast at the carpet. El Diablo was one. She then looked back at Lisa. But what does this have to do with Lincoln? Lisa pushed her glasses up a little as she felt them spilling down her nose. With this knowledge, I have the theory that may get our brother to finally realize that we don't mean to cause him any harm. If we can show Lincoln that we're not a threat to his very existence, he may lose his fear of that exponential rate, and the main reason Lincoln doesn't fear Lily, as I figured because she is much too young to bring any real harm to him. Lana rubbed her chin. Are you absolutely sure this is gonna work, Lise? I mean, Lincoln can't even be in the same building with us without freaking out. How are we supposed to get him to believe we are no threat if all he'd do is run? Lisa nodded. It should. And given that Lincoln first made contact with Lori 16 hours ago, it appears his fear towards us is beginning to taper off. With his mind, we must still act while we have the opportunity. She sat down on the stool. As we could see, Lincoln not seeing us from a little while elevates his fears, and it may have amplified them. Only though the constant exposure he could actually dispels his phobia. The sound of the running engine brought their attention at the window. Getting up, Lisa peered outside with Lana, spotting Vanzilla pulling into the driveway. But first, I'll need to run this fury by our parents, Lisa finished, pulling away from the window. Should we tell the others too? The mud lover asked. Parents first, sisters later. The sudden opening of the bedroom door and the loud thud made the girls twist their heads around. Lola picked herself up, apparently not realizing the door wasn't fully closed. While the two girls may have been, what then peeved over at Lola, who was snooping again, was more distracted by what she was wearing. Why are you wearing my overalls? Lana asked, no hint of malice in her tone. I thought they looked nice, came Lola's meek reply.